Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of All Access. And as is custom, we had audiovisual problems again. I have the world's most fragile audiovisual setup for some reason. And it's obviously not powered by Avalanche, not powered by any of our software. But in any case, now here we are. I hope you have a fantastic Friday, and I hope you are poised for a fantastic weekend ahead. There's a lot to discuss as usual, so let's get into the commentary and discussion. So there are a lot of big announcements that came out this week. The very first one is this one, which is the platform updates. So there was one maybe not so great issue that happened yesterday. After about 2 years, we had our second issue on the network for about an hour and a half. There was an edge case in the network in one of the transaction handling routines on the X chain that caused the problem. This was an issue that we mistakenly added in a recent code upgrade. There was a check. The same check was preserved, but it wasn't invoked in as many places as it should have, and that led to some of the validators, not all of them, but some of the validators on the X chain to just kind of get confused and stop what they're doing on the X chain. So that ended up impacting clearly it ended up impacting the X chain, and also over time it ended up causing some issues for the C chain as well, because the C chain gets affected when there are transfers from the X to the C. There will be a full post-mortem done by the dev team. They worked really, really hard. I'm really proud of the response, and they ended up. The devs ended up handling this issue, and there's a patch for it. It's fixed. The bug is undone, and so we're done with that. And I'm really thrilled overall about the resilience of this network. I think it was obviously stressful every time you have an issue where the network sputters, etc. It's actually a big deal. I know that some of you have grown to accept this as a normal event in other chains. It's quite unusual for us. And going 2 years and not having any issues whatsoever, and then having a partial issue like this one, it's actually not a bad track record. Regardless, it's unnerving when it happens, and I'm glad that we managed to that the dev team ended up handling it so well in the hour and a half that affected the network. So there was no reorg, there was no double mint. Let's just be clear about this. There will be a lot of FUD every time there's any issue whatsoever. There are a lot of networks, by the way, a lot of other competing blockchains that have long-standing problems, and they just kind of, they take a long while to fix, or maybe they never get fixed, and nobody bats an eyelid. So we're not one of them. We hold ourselves to a very high standard. And so again, just to be clear, no rollback, no reorg, no double mint, no double spend, no double anything. And it's just essentially a state management issue inside some of the validators. It's a state management issue in the code that affected some of the validators. So let's move on. I have great news for you. We have the next platform update, and it's a big one. So you are familiar with Banff. We're up to Banff, whatever now, 15 or something. Banff was the last big platform update, and that gave us warp messaging, and gave us a lot of the performance improvements that have sped us up. And now Cortina is coming, and there are a couple of big things in Cortina, but one of the main things that's happening in Cortina is the X-chain migration to Snowman++. So as you know, we have no shortage of brand new amazing protocols over here, just because of our background and everyone's expertise. So whereas other chains make a lot of noise about repurposing code from 1999, we actually develop brand new protocols designed specifically for blockchain use. And we had two protocols, one called Avalanche Consensus, that's backing the X chain, and Snowman++ that's backing the C chain, the P chain, and many of our subnets. Now, both of them are great. The issue with the X chain using Avalanche Consensus is that it's not immediately compatible with Snowman++, and it's not immediately supporting warp messaging. We want warp messaging to work. We want warp messaging to work seamlessly, And so to do that, one of the things we want to do is migrate the X chain onto Snowman++. That does mean that we will end up giving up on one of the features of the X chain, which is its DAG nature. I was quite fond of this DAG nature, and as an academic, I thought a whole lot of things, that in real life turn out to have to be tempered. So one of the things that I thought many years ago, 4 years ago, when we were doing this protocol, I thought DAGs have the potential to be far faster, which they do. The problem, though, with DAGs is, and we're going to end up giving up on the DAG because of this migration. It's not that big of a problem to give up on it because I've been wanting to get rid of it for some time. And the main reason why I've wanted to do this is the fact that every single exchange out there is designed for Bitcoin or Ethereum or one of the other legacy chains. Those are single chain systems, which is already problematic. We're not a single chain system, we're a multi-chain system. So those guys, like the exchange people, they got trained on Bitcoin, they got trained on Ethereum, so they expect a single simple chain. And from the get-go, we kept saying a single simple chain cannot solve the world's problems, yet you have to have the capacity to have multiple. And so we have that. So that's been a cause of consternation for us as we interact with exchanges. The second problem that exchanges have, again, trained by Bitcoin, trained by Ethereum, they expect a total order for all transactions. If Alice paid Bob and Charlie paid David, so those two transactions can happen simultaneously. A DAG has the ability to commit them to the graph at the same time without having to order them with respect to each other. And if you don't have to order things that are unrelated, well, you get a speed up, right? Because you don't have to have messaging complexity to determine an order for two things that don't need to be ordered. Well, it turns out that the exchanges end up forcing you to have to order everything. They expect everything to be totally ordered. They ask dumb questions like, which came first, this transaction or that transaction, for two unrelated transactions. They don't need to ask that question, but their code is not written in a way that obviates that question. So if you write it in the dumb, simple way, you're used to getting an answer immediately. You have you have a totally ordered protocol underneath you, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and so you get used to these kinds of things. So none of the exchanges allowed us to actually take advantage of the cool features of our DAG. We weren't getting we ended up having to answer this question for them. It's actually a hard question to answer. They also want to be able to connect to the network from multiple nodes and to have any of those nodes fail at any time so they can switch from one to the other. And when they switch, they want to see the exact same sequence of events. Well, that's not possible on a DAG. Well, it is possible on a DAG, but it's not possible without additional complexity on a DAG. So, and why is that? Well, because on a DAG, one node can perceive Alice paying Bob, and then afterwards, Charlie paying David, while another node sees Charlie paying David, then sees Alice paying Bob. So those two things are actually simultaneous, and the DAG itself is partially ordered and does not impose a total order. So anybody who assumes that there's a total order is already off to a bad start, and they will ask questions that are nonsensical. Which came first, chicken or the egg? I don't know. There's a chicken, there's an egg. They happen simultaneously. And the beauty of this whole protocol was that they can happen simultaneously, unlike those legacy protocols. Well, after enough pain with exchange integrations, there was enough motivation for us to simply say, okay, well, screw it. We have so much speed, we can give up some of it and simply go to a totally ordered protocol, have Snowman++, and just have a very simple, easy to understand X chain that is a linear chain. So we're going to do that. The main reason for it is warp messaging. There are other secondary reasons, and one of the main secondary reasons is exchange integrations. We're going to do that change, and it'll be a little easier to understand and navigate the X chain after this modification. And I am so thrilled about this. So this will mean that the entire network has moved to a single consensus engine. So it reduces the size of the trusted computing base. For those of you who are technical, you will immediately see the benefit of this. We end up having to trust less code. We end up having to maintain less code. So for the devs, this is a huge boon. So there's that. For the rest of folks who are not devs themselves, Well, the devs now can actually focus not on necessarily duplicating all functionality for two different consensus protocols, but instead they can focus on building new functionality. So we'll simplify the code base, get rid of the Avalanche consensus protocol, the one that's DAG based, and keep the other one in the Avalanche family, Snowman++, and use that for our consensus on the X chain. If you've been using the C chain, you've been using Snowman++, you know how fast it is. If you've been using the P chain to delegate or stake, you know how fast that is. So here what's going on is the X chain is moving to the same code base as those. It'll unify, it'll simplify things for us, and this is part of the code maturation process for us. And our innovation efforts will now suddenly be a lot faster. Without this, they would be about twice as slow, because we would have had to have the same exact functionality built both for one engine and also replicated for the other. There are a couple of other changes that might seem like small things, but they affect all of us, and they're very good. So it introduces this new upgrade called Cortina, introduces batch delegator rewards. So what are batch delegator rewards? So when you run a validator and you have a lot of people delegating to you, which they can do, as they do that, you end up collecting small amounts of delegation rewards. Well, those in the old days were just sort of spread out over multiple UTXOs, and they complicated the process of signing your subsequent transactions. And there was a lot of dust being created, a lot of very small UTXOs being created. It wasn't very good for the chain. It's a lot easier if all of those are batched together into one single UTXO that is the sum total of all your rewards. So I'm excited about that. That cleans up the chain, reduces space consumption on the P chain. And the Cortina upgrade also increases the C chain gas limit. So that's also great. The maximum limit gets upped. So we still target about the same amount of disk usage, but on occasion we can burst to larger amounts of gas. So that's really useful for more complex smart contracts out there that demanded, on occasion, they demanded a large, long-running transaction, and now we support that. Let's see. So 15 million gas, that's the block gas limit. So we can have more complex transactions issued on a single block. Great. So I'm really, really excited. So this change is going to mean that the X chain is cleaner, simpler, that our efforts are concentrated on just one portion of the code base, and I cannot tell you how great a developer feels when code is simplified, made more elegant. So I'm really excited about that change. It's going to give us huge benefits in terms of future productivity, because we don't have to duplicate everything that we do, and we don't have to build some really intricate code for imposing a total order on a partially ordered DAG in order to satisfy all of these exchange integration needs. So I'm thrilled about this, and there's a lot more to be said about Cortina, and as the various Cortina releases come online, we'll talk about them. But I'm super excited. For those of you who are keeping tabs, the Cortina upgrade from the DAG to Snowman++ on the fly, it's on the order of the Ethereum merge in terms of complexity. So it's so remember how long it took them to get that right, the merge that they did, and the switch from proof of work to their current signature accrual mechanism, the one that they're using for their consensus protocol right now. So we're going to, I think it's going to be done by the middle of April if everything goes well, and I'm excited about what's to come there. So so you can compare how long this thing takes us. On the TYB Shopify front, so TYB is a loyalty platform. It's a fan token. It's a customer token, etc., for people who are using brands, for brands to use with their customers. So that's been integrated with Shopify. We already had a great business partnership with Shopify, and now what we can do is what people can do is they can use tokens issued on Avalanche to build a relationship with their customers. There are millions of merchants on Shopify, and this token, this integration is now going to give them the ability to connect with and provide rewards to fans that take various activity, various actions, various interactions with their favorite brands. So lots of big brands are using the TYB platform built on Avalanche, and I think one of them is Juneshine, the other one is Topicals, etc., etc. There's a bunch of people who are using this already, and now it's going to be even more broadly applicable. This is part of sort of bear market things that we see. I love seeing stuff like this. This is intransigent demand. The people who do this, they do it regardless. Somebody who uses skincare in a bear market and a bull market. Unlike DeFi, this stuff is just here to stay, and this kind of demand is fantastic to have and support on one's chain. So you're seeing us go in a very different direction than the rest of folks in this space. Many other people gave up on layer 1 scaling. They punted the ball to layer 2s. And layer 2s, I keep saying this, they're going to find that as they try to add fraud proofs and make themselves kind of secure as opposed to a trust me kind of operation, as they try to decentralize their sequencers so that they don't come under regulatory scrutiny, because at the moment, anybody who's, the Arbitrum folks are in effect running an exchange. Every DEX on Arbitrum is really a centralized exchange on Arbitrum's server. So as they try to decentralize the sequencers, as they try to add security, as they try to reach that vision, they will simply replicate the layer 1. So if the layer 1 you're on is only giving you, some speed, say 2.5 minutes for finality, and then you build a layer 2 and you try to do the same things as the layer 1 that you branched off of, you will find that you've moved all of your problems to a different set of people. That's what layer 2 scaling is all about. It's a punt from one set of people to another group, and you will see that those people will grapple with the exact same problems that the previous people grappled with and could not handle. So that's what we're going to see on the layer 2 front, and all of the layer 2s will evolve to be their own layer 1s. I mentioned this. I mentioned that every layer 2 will have its own token, that it will become cannibalistic of the load underneath. All of these have been borne out. At the time I said this, I came under attack. People were like, oh, Arbitrum doesn't have a token. It will never have a token. Well, now it's got an airdrop, and everyone's excited about the airdrop. And all of these are essentially just cannibalistic plays, and all of these layer 2 people just pay some lip service to try to remain friendly with the Ethereum folks, but they don't have an honest stance. So if you look at what they're doing, they're all trying to cannibalize the load on Ethereum. We have a different vision for going forward. We have a different vision for how to scale, and it's been the same vision from day one, that we believe in multiple parallel chains. And that's exactly where we're headed with Warp. That's exactly where we were headed with subnets. And that's exactly what the market has borne out. That these games, for example, that operate on Avalanche, they weren't affected at all by the X-Chain issue that we had on whenever it was, Wednesday. So I told you that we would have failure isolation. I told you that we would have fee isolation. All of those have been borne out, and in the exact same way, the vision for blockchains going forward will be borne out as well. That it will be subnet based. It will be a series of chains that interact with each other under the same fold. Now, the layer 2 vision means that you get a lot of layer 2s that don't talk to each other, but the subnet vision is different. You get a whole bunch of cohesive chains that do talk to each other over the same uniform mechanism, and I'm really, really thrilled about bringing that mechanism to the X-Chain as well. Okay, so Ty, for example, from TYB said something like Avalanche was the perfect platform on which to create a tool where brands can easily reward their biggest fans and contributors. Sure, I was at a couple of meetings. That's partly why I'm a little tired today, but I just came back from DC. Prior to that, I was in another meeting of techies, and CTOs of large companies were just coming up to me and saying, hey, I love Avalanche. We all use Avalanche for our internal development. Everything we do on the dev side, we do on Avalanche because it's so reliable and so fast to interact with. So that's the kind of endorsement I really want. These business endorsements are nice too, but it's the savvy people who know what they're doing. They know where to go when they need a chain. So they are not taken over by the talk, by the bullshit circle on Twitter. You get like 12 of your friends and they start BSing all day about words you made up. You could do that all day. But at the end of the day, the question is, do you deliver a product that other people can take and build something on? Do you deliver a platform on which someone can digitize their valuable assets and distribute them across the globe? So we do that. And others who can do that are our competitors. And my main competitor, I think, is Wall Street. They can't do this. They do it in only a limited fashion. And where I want to be in 5 to 10 years with Avalanche is as the platform for global asset tokenization, for global asset digitization, for global asset distribution. Every single asset wants to be digitized. So we provide the platform for it. Okay, so with that, let me take some questions. Let's see what people have. With the gas limit being increased on the C chain, is state growth still not a concern? No, it's a concern, but it's not that big a concern because we have things coming up to handle that. And I don't want to take the wind out of my own sails, but it's not a concern for me. But we are doing things that will allow us to address state growth. State growth how is Ava Labs work coming along on state growth solution? It's coming along just perfectly fine. Is Mangrove DB the key? Yes, I was trying to be kind of coy and keep names out, etc. But we have a database. We have an entire database team that's looking into state management, and we expect to have a better database built from the ground up for cryptocurrencies for blockchain use. As you know, blockchains have different lookup patterns than, say, a browser's bookmarks list, which is what LevelDB was designed for. And LevelDB is actually designed well enough that it can handle, your typical database loads. But blockchain loads are very different from typical databases. So look at TPCC, look at these benchmarks. There's a lot of locality. There's both spatial locality and temporal locality in those workloads. Blockchain workloads tend to have some temporal locality, but with almost no spatial locality, and very, very different beast. And so you got to have a completely different approach to how you structure your database. And yes, it's coming along really well. And one of the things after Cortina is going to be the addition of better databases, better state management to Avalanche. Has Avalanche considered tokenizing stocks and bonds outside of the US, as there are hundreds of international companies? Yes, this is a fascinating question. It's one that I've thought quite a bit about. It's something that I believe strongly in as an interesting area. And there's only so much we can do at Ava Labs. But if you look at what's happening around the world, it looks like we're poised for a credit crunch. Many other countries outside the US and mostly outside Europe also are having economic slowdowns. Some of them are going into proper recessions. So companies will need ways to access liquidity, and they might want to offer their securities for sale. They might want to offer their equity for sale. They might want to issue bonds for sale in a manner that's independent of their local jurisdiction to the world at large. There is money in the world, but there are it's not distributed. Obviously, it's not distributed evenly. It's distributed incredibly unevenly, and often well-run businesses, deserving businesses, have difficulty accessing them accessing pools of liquidity outside of the U.S. So this is a legal play as much as it's a technical play, and it's something I've thought a lot about. It's something we could all benefit from. If any of you want to come up with ways to issue tokens that correspond to equities on foreign markets, or that correspond to bonds on foreign markets, or that correspond to genuine new bond issuances by companies overseas, and you want to do this legally, and you want to look into the legality of it and make it work, I think that would be fantastic. It would make the world a better place by taking capital from those who have it and allowing it to flow to those who need it. And I think the outcome, it's entirely possible to do this from a legal perspective, I believe, in many countries. And so it's just up for the taking for whoever has the resources to tackle this problem. As I said, it's not so much a technical problem as it is a legal problem. So I would love to see this addressed. It's not something that it's something that we've thought about, but it's not something we're doing broadly at Ava Labs. So I would like to see other people do this. What do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about AVAX, and how do you plan to address it? Well, the biggest misconception is that we're like everybody else. So that's probably the biggest one. The second biggest misconception is probably that there is only the Avalanche C chain that matters, and to look comparatively solely at C chain versus other stuff. So the second one is easier to address. One by one, we are trying to educate everybody who's in the business of summarizing data or summarizing the state of the art, or writing about the state of the art, or writing about blockchains, that Avalanche is different architecturally. So whereas you have networks like Bitcoin, which are single asset, single chain, whereas you have networks like Ethereum, which are multi-asset, but still a single chain, you now have systems like Avalanche that are multi-asset, multi-chain. So this means that simplistic means of reporting things that happen on the chain are no longer adequate. You can't just sum up the TVL on the C chain and compare that to somebody else. You have to sum it up across all of the subnets. You can't just look at the activity on the C chain. You got to look at what's happening on DFK. You got to look at what's happening on the 50 other subnets that exist on mainnet. So that's a one-by-one education experience. We're slowly getting to Messari, which has they're well-intentioned, but their tools are again based on Bitcoin and Ethereum and the world, the old world. So they will always be 3 to 5 years behind, and so we need to educate them. And so Ryan was for the longest time a Bitcoin maxi. Now he talks about Bitcoin and Ethereum. I worked on him so hard for so many years. And I'm proud of the distance he's covered, and we'll make him an Avalanche maxi in due course of time as he realizes, hey, no single chain can serve all of our needs. So it's time for Avalanche and systems like it. We're not alone. There's also Cosmos. There's also Polkadot that has a similar architecture, but all of those two others, they actually have centralized components to communicate between their subnets. You have to go through some kind of a central hub that they injected into their architecture, and that's not true for Avalanche. So we have a far more flexible architecture. What am I doing to address the very first misconception that we're just like everybody else? This comes back to you in funny ways. So what do people assume? They assume that when we say we have a new protocol, we're just like everybody else. We're like Justin Sun said he had a new protocol. Right? Ethereum made so much noise, so freaking much noise for so many years, and I tried to help them in the early days too. So much noise about ETH2 that we all expected it to have a brand new protocol, and they came up ultimately with a signature accrual protocol that didn't have any of the initial requirements that they mentioned they wanted to have, and isn't. It's just not very groundbreaking, or it's not very interesting. So we're not like them. We actually have genuinely new technology. We brought more technology to the space than any other group. Let that sink in. We brought a new consensus protocol. We brought a new bridge that has not been hacked. It had up to $7 billion in it at some point. And it used entirely different technology than everyone else's. So people will go and say all sorts of wise sounding things about bridges. What do they know? All they know are those crappy bridges that they used for so many years. They haven't seen a proper bridge. They wouldn't know how to design one. We designed that one. We designed and spun out a whole new company for the purpose of building a new trustworthy exchange where even if SBF ran it, he would not be able to steal a dime, that little snake. So That's called Enclave. You can take a look at their products, Enclave Cross, also known as Enclave OTC, which gives you a confidentiality guarantee. So you can do a trade and no one will ever know that you did that trade. Nobody gives you this. Nobody in the crypto world, and definitely also nobody in the Wall Street world. People on Wall Street hate dark pools. Why? Because the dark pool operator peeks into the dark pool and leaks information about who's trading what. And these are, sparsely traded assets. And so when you're selling or when you're buying, you don't want the information to come out. And but the sysadmin can see everything on those systems. We built something that nobody else can build. So I can go on like this. I'm going to stop. And subnet architecture, entirely brand new. We brought that. Some other jackass took it and branded it SuperNets, and he's trying to sell it. Okay, they don't have any technology. They don't have any knowledge of what the hell they're doing. So they're trying to buy their way to respectability, and we will see how badly that will fail over time. So we've brought a lot of technology in. We're not like the others. One of these things is not like the others. There are others that actually do bring genuine technology into this space. I have a lot of respect for some of my competitors. But if you look at the leaderboard or the market cap, etc., those two things have nothing to do with each other. So the world doesn't understand where the true innovation is. And sometimes innovation doesn't really mean market success. Sometimes you optimize something that the market doesn't care about. But in these cases, we're addressing those problems that matter head on. So what am I doing about this? At the moment, I'm not doing much. The best way to sort of do this is to sit there quietly and let the technology speak for itself. The people who want their own chain, they vote with their feet. Even in this current climate, where we're bleeding, essentially the entire space is going sideways. The momentum has stopped, and people are anxious, etc., etc. They're anxious not only about crypto, they're anxious about the general financial system as a whole. So even in this climate, people are flocking to us, wanting to launch their own chains. We have these subnets that are coming up, and they're growing in number. So there are a bunch of things that are happening that will slowly, I think, allow the world to realize, hey, this stuff is actually different. It's like those other people make noise. These are the ones who deliver the exact dream that these guys are unable to reach. And there's a reason why they're unable to reach it. They have the wrong frameworks. They end up identifying certain things as must-haves, and they end up identifying the bad, whatever it is, they have bad terminology, bad definitions, and so forth, and that channels them towards bad solutions that will not deliver for them what they think they want. And here we are doing exactly those things that they couldn't carry out themselves. One of our side chains clears more transactions per second than Ethereum. So that's just a subnet for us. And do I need to do something about this? Well, I can't exactly go on the rooftops and scream my lungs out. I will have to rely on two things. One, technology speaking for itself. Two, people voting with their feet, which I'm doing. Maybe I'll rely on a third thing. You all, listeners, going out and telling everyone that, hey, Avalanche is actually kind of different here. So it is not in the fold of, we're not trying to kowtow to Vitalik, right? I love Vitalik. He's a good friend. We're not trying to get our legitimacy by trying to appear friendly, etc. We have legitimate technical differences. We're proud of our technical differences. I believe they're headed in the wrong direction with scalability. I always told them that sharding was going to be wrong. Look, they've already slowly danced away from that. So they will slowly dance to exactly where we are, and that's exactly what they're doing. The other folks who make noise online, whatever it is, somebody has to tell them, look, you're making all this noise, but these guys are delivering the very same things that you are unable to deliver despite your noise. So I rely on you for this, and that's all I know to do. We just give it time, and none of these technologies are overnight successes, right? So Amazon, I remember when it was launched. I remember it in 1997, 1998. I remember it all the way to 99. I think it was mostly just a book, selling books, selling household items, garden items. And at some point they launched AWS, and they went on to a different track. So, it was none of those things that look like an overnight success are overnight successes. So we'll have to just fight our way and gain the recognition that our technology deserves. So I saw DEX hit 2 million transactions since launch. What do you think is the reason for its growth? Awesomeness. That's the reason for its growth. DEX is really, really fantastic. For those of you who don't know, it's a DEX. And it's not a DEX like Uniswap in the sense that you're not trading on DEX against a pool. If you do that, you do have this nice feature. The pool is always there, but every time you trade into the pool, there's slippage. So Uniswap slippage is actually significant. So if you're trying to establish a position using Uniswap, you will slide. And this is true for all Uniswap derivatives, all AMMs. DEX is different. It's kind of like DXDY, I guess. It's if you want to think of how it is, think of it, it's exactly like the New York Stock Exchange. It's like NASDAQ, except run on a blockchain. It's NASDAQ if NASDAQ were to run securely and transparently. It's New York Stock Exchange if New York Stock Exchange had transparency. So it's already a step up from TradFi. And it has the potential to be far more efficient. So one of the main reasons for its success is the fact that slippage is so low. On DEX you can do a trade. You can probably do an AVAX trade. I don't know of what size at the moment, but with essentially no slippage, with like 10 bips or so slippage on AVAX. I don't know how many. I haven't checked them. I haven't checked them recently. Last I checked, they were adding more pairs. I don't know how many pairs they have at the moment, but I do know that slippage was incredibly low on the pairs that they supported when I checked about 2 weeks ago. So that's one of the main reasons for why people go there, is to trade and get a good price. And unlike a pool, which doesn't know the true price and has to constantly adjust its prices, as you buy into a pool in a big transaction, the price necessarily slips, even with liquidity bands, even with V3, Uniswap V3 tricks. There will always be some slippage with AMMs. So in the case of DEX the slippage is far, far less. So that's one of the reasons. Second reason, the fees are predictable. It's just DEX load is isolated from the C chain. It's not operating on the C chain. On Uniswap, on occasion, you have to pony up $500 to trade. And so that's a big problem. And you'll get MEV'd. So somebody will front run you as you try to do your trade, or sandwich you or whatnot. So on the DEX subnet, at the moment, none of the validators take advantage of MEV. And so they run their own network. It's their own subnet, and the fees are predictable on that subnet. So that's a fantastic second reason. Third reason, the entire user interface is so pleasant. Technologically speaking, DEX is unlike every other solution out there. It straddles both their subnet and the C chain. So your assets remain on the C chain, but you trade on the subnet. And this is a fantastic design. It's got a lot of cool features associated with it. You get the security of the C chain for your assets. You get the convenience of the C chain. But overall, I think I would say that it's the user experience that makes DEX so nice to use. You just go there, you do trades. Most people don't even understand what's happening, that there are two chains involved, one for holding assets, one for trading, and nor should they ever understand any of this. It's just a better foundation for building a trading platform. It's in every way better than other crypto, other DEXs, and it's in every way better than what exists on TradFi. So take a look. This dual network design is very cool. Okay, to be fair, AMMs have their own features as well. So DEX is only as good as the order books that they have, right? The nice thing about an AMM is that there is always a bid and an ask. There's only one bid and one ask, right? That the pool provides, and in the case of DEX there need not be any kind of a transaction on the order books. So that might be. That's maybe the big difference between the two. But practically speaking, when I look at what's happening on DEX I see great prices. So it seems like the traders have found this thing. They're offering, the order books are good, and you can do trades with very low slippage. Okay. So there's probably many other questions, and let's see. There are other issues to discuss. There's the bank failures. There is the regulatory questions. I was in DC for again talking talking at CFTC's very first meeting. There's a lot to be said, but I'm going to sort of keep my mouth shut about a lot of this stuff. There's bank failures, etc., affect all of us, and they're really problematic. And so I'm glad that the enormous crisis was averted, and we're back to normal business. And we'll see what happens with the rest of the financial system. There are people out there who are doing the usual doom and gloom. I'm not one of them, but I can see their arguments that things are not all okay. I also see, wherever I look, I see great inefficiencies in the financial system. And blockchains are here to fix them. I have seen that report from the White House, and I read it with great dismay because they don't seem to understand what's really going on. I think in previous episodes, we talked about the 5 year ago people. Some people, I'm sure you have these as well, some friends of yours, are forever stuck in 5 years ago, right? When everyone's wearing, tight jeans, they're wearing those, pull-up grandma pants, they're just stuck in a different era. They just come behind, when everyone's doing whatever loose clothing, they've got the crop top or what have you. So they're always from another. I know that the grandma jeans are making a comeback, so maybe that wasn't the world's best example. But there are people out there who are always stuck in the past. And some of the literature that I saw coming from certain corners looked like they were written by people who are stuck in the past. So they got a glimpse of crypto 5 years ago, and then their minds were closed. And it's really, really simple, actually. Like, you can do this test. Here, I'll give you a litmus test. If you ever get a chance to talk to one of these people, ask them what they think the coolest innovations in crypto are. I bet you that these people will be able to speak to Bitcoin very, very effectively. They understand Bitcoin, they understand mining, like those things from 11 years ago, they've got it down pat. Some of them probably can describe to you what Ethereum is, what Ethereum can do. I bet you none of them understand how Avalanche is different. We try to change this, try to educate them about the shape of things to come, how the world will move to multiple blockchains, how these blockchains can be compliant. And but they currently don't seem to have that understanding. And as a result, they are in this mode where they have hunkered down and they're saying, well, look, there's a big mismatch between narratives and delivered things, et cetera, et cetera. So as these folks catch up to the cutting edge, I think that the prevailing atmosphere is going to shift, and I can't wait for that to happen. Other than that, I won't say anything about any specific issue related to regulation or bank failures and so forth. It's we've got what we've got, and I'm excited about the near term. Actually, I think that good things are happening in crypto. From a technologist perspective, great things are coming to crypto. So Cortina, for example, will make our life incredibly simple, and you will suddenly see a huge wave of innovation when it comes to how to build a node, how to speed it up, how to build high-performance chains, and so forth. I touched upon the databases, and there are other changes that we are thinking about as well. And so no matter what happens in this space, the tech we've built is better than what powers the world. And let's just kind of slowly kind of parse this. It literally, in every way, is better than the complicated systems, some going back to COBOL days, that power the world today. So even if we do nothing, as I've mentioned this multiple times before, the Gen Zers, when they come to power, will not stand for this COBOL crap. Okay, the boomers might be like, oh, this crypto thing is good for nothing, blah blah blah. My nephew told me about Bitcoin, and I don't like this, that, or the other about it. Well, fine. Once those people are phased out, the digital first people will come in and they'll say, look, we clearly want a We want a solution where no one is in charge. We want a solution where compliance is built into the fabric. We want a solution that provides a fair, even, democratic playing field for all, where insiders don't get preferential access. So that's what we've got coming, and it's getting better every day. So thank you for being on this journey with me, and have a great weekend. I'll see you on chain.